What's up, everybody, and welcome back for another recap review show here at Big O Belt Media for this series, Halo, which tonight we're getting into episode 6 from season 2, where this episode is titled Onyx. Terrell and I, per usual, are here to talk about this entire episode. No need to give fair warning because there's no reason you should be looking for a recap if you haven't already seen the episode here. But in fairness, though, the real warning is if you have somehow, some way fallen off the Halo wagon, you're done with the series, you hate it, it's terrible. It's another episode of Master Chief not wearing the armor. Why is it Quan Ha's story? Mandalorian 2.0, all these random narratives that people are running. There's no reason you should be here looking for a recap of episode 6. I think they gave you enough reasons per y'all comments to have fallen off by now. But for the folks who is liking it, who's ready to hear what we got to say and talk about this entire episode, welcome. Definitely get in the comments. Let us know anything we might have forgotten, your theories, predictions for the next week, all that good stuff. Let's bring the positivity in. But yeah, this is episode 6 of season 2, Onyx, where John seeks revenge on a secret Oni planet. Perez trains to become a new type of soldier. Kai finds herself torn between her Spartan code and her loyalty to Master Chief. Makee turns to Cortana to help her in her search for the Halo. So let's start off right there. We got Perez coming back as she's been off the series for a couple of episodes now. And the last time we seen her, John sort of gave her a coin, and the Sayonara was like, hey, Spartan business this way, civilians that way. And I guess Michael Jordan meme, she took that to heart. She took it personal. And now we see that she is getting her some Spartan training through a simulation. We see her jumping from a UNSC ship over to a Covenant ship, which is I think they call it like free basing or whatnot. But yeah, she's jumping. Which is already its own level of difficulty, as they mentioned. We see her in a team where one particular character who, not heavily featured, but is really a big part of the simulation as part of her team is Mullins, who's running point. So at this rate now, we see Perez sort of taking a step back, taking command, getting away of the ropes, not making any decisions of her own, up until the point where we see Mullins getting the same fate as Vanek. And in order for her to complete the mission by delivering the spike, which is going to give a virus to the ship, it's up for Perez to do the same. But the simulation's over as Kai is the one overseeing that. No surprise there per last episode. Ultimately for Kai to come in, give the results like, hey, you guys failed this. Simulation's over. Little bit of friction between the two of them. But ultimately, Perez has her eyes set in terms of being a Spartan, as she's looking at all of the propaganda of Master Chief and ultimately the person she wants to come. So just right there, what was your thoughts about the introduction? Now that we're kind of seeing a little bit of a trajectory of this character, Corporal Perez, she's just lost her family. She got the coin toss from Chief, like, you go that way, I go this way. And then ultimately we see where Kai's significance is sort of in this next program of Spartans, and Perez is looking to be in that first class. What's sort of your thoughts with all of that?
First off, I mean, coming into this episode, I thought we were watching a flashback. I thought we were finding out what happened to what was the team that they kept
Cobalt.
The Cobalt team. I thought this was a reference pass of what happened to the Cobalt team. I'm like, oh, okay, we're seeing what happened, when they went on the suicide mission. And then it turned out to be psych, this is a simulation. So, definitely, I mean, this looked really good. I mean, for this to just be like a simulation of how they did this looked really good. I mean, just to have the ability to be able to run tape to see how you can avoid, certain things in combat, or like predictive, what do they call it? Conditioning your soldiers. I mean, this doesn't seem too bad, to be honest. But we get a little bit of insight as to how these soldiers are conditioned, like, how they get used to combat without actually being in combat, stuff like that. seeing Kyle on screen again, I mean, I instantly think, man, this snake, I mean, she did all this so that she can lead the team, which absolutely makes zero sense coming into the previous episodes and seeing them being so team oriented, and to see her step away and to get this promotion, and then we see her in a teaching role. As we now know that she's leading a new team of Spartans, which now we know that program is indeed not DQ'd. So it's like I said, this whole thing, like I said, just really really good start to a good episode, and just not knowing, like, seeing how this, like you just said, like you lined it up, this episode is being split into almost like 3 parts, and everybody getting enough time in the story. But no, this started off really good, to answer your question. Like
I mean, to piggyback off of what you said last week, I think the real important shift from really where all the war really went down episode 4 is a lot of the supporting characters now are showing why they're even involved with the story in the first place. Right. So everybody's getting beef to their story. And I know this is the Master Chief show. I know you all know a lot more of the lore than I do. I'm obviously here to talk about what my thoughts and feelings about the series is, and with some level of knowledge to the video game. And thus I'm enjoying that, because again, whether it's the Quan Haas, whether it is, Ackerson, which, a lot of you all know a lot of the backstory to these characters. For what they're giving us, every character is very intriguing to me. And I'd be the first one to say that Kai has been one of my favorite characters up until about 3 episodes ago, because I felt betrayed too. But I like the Kai arc here, because let's not forget, Kai also had her pellet removed, which then was sort of the release of her emotions and her being able to make rational decisions. But even with that, we see she's still struggling, as the synopsis say, between her taking orders and her loyalty to Master Chief. And it's funny that she would look at Master Chief as a liability, at least by way of his emotion. But even to go up a scale higher, they're looking like we can't control him. And then Kai is sort of led like he is a liability because he's not following the mission. So it's interesting to see like Kai assuming this leadership role where she's like, you're going to be the next Master Chief. She acknowledging that there can never be another Master Chief, but yet she's still being puppeted to be on the front line of everything. I mean, granted, she is the last one left, but little does she know what ultimately happened to her team and how her absence, and also the manipulation that she was under, is really a cause of that. So the beginning part of this episode really gave a lot in like 5 minutes. I was scrambling my notes a little bit, and I'm like, whoa, this is definitely a lot. And I think what's going to be interesting here is at some point, Kai and Perez may ultimately have a conversation about what loyalty means, because when Perez, who, was saying, I was down there on the front line, I got some training and whatnot, so you haven't gotten anything. But the more and more they talk, the more and more she's going to figure out what Master Chief was really up against, being down there without his armor, trying to even save civilians at a chance, being there for Perez. I know, working with limited resources, being ambushed, his quest to find the truth, to the Cobalt's truth. Like, there's a lot that's going to come from this. So I like how we got that little rub between the two of them, but ultimately that sent Kai in a direction to even wanting to know more answers even before Chief had gotten there. But anyway, to keep going here, so Peronowski, she is, I have to say, and again, I don't know the lore like you all, so maybe you all saw this coming, but I gotta say, she has to be one of the biggest surprises of this entire series, because she's full-blown heel now, and she uses this story about T coming from Earth to almost run a narrative to Ackerson, who is definitely her protege. She's training him, and ultimately we figure out that the Spartan program will be his program to run. But ultimately, and I mean, this is like well documented in history in so many different accounts, but the idea of someone being sacrificed for the sake of propaganda, memorializing that person for the sake of whatever the long-term goal is. And I mean, that gets deep here. But they basically said we couldn't control Chief. So we basically had to kill him. You see her setting up all of this Spartan propaganda that they're going to put up here. And again, going back to the T, talking about like, the story about T and where did it come from on Earth, only to say it was really made on level 4. And, drawing similarities between T and empires, and all that sorts of different stuff. But ultimately, to lead to the suspicion that Halsey and Master Chief may actually be on the planet. They may actually be there on Onyx. And while Atkinson completely denies it, it's no way possible. There's a lot of other reasons that lead them to think so. And it's interesting because Peronowski is no fool. Anybody who knows defense systems, a large guy spotting, there was enough intel for her to know that it seems that Master Chief and Halsey may be on their doorsteps, which is a problem because those were the two people they needed to get rid of there.
Right.
Going next though, and right before that, we just see Chief looking at the base because he has him in the vision, which ultimately gets us to the title screen. So all that happened before the title screen.
I thought he was going to get shot right there. I thought they were going to see him and snipe him like right on that cliff when he was looking down.
Not on the Master Chief show. No way.
He's got an overshield.
I mean, my man took a beating pretty bad in this episode. So, but I don't think they're gonna ever. Listen, folks are already mad that he doesn't have his armor. Could you imagine him not even being on the episode?
Yeah, it'd be really weird.
Yeah. But anyway, we got Kai now running simulations because she can't sleep. And with that, we see a measure of it if either it's training or punishment. Because as she mentioned, her team is all gone, all the people they lost. And so there's a little bit of survivor's remorse here. Maybe it's not that deep, but ultimately it's on her mind. And she briefs Atkinson like, hey, none of the recruits survived the simulation. And ultimately that Master Chief is gone. It's really about her making the next class of Spartans.
Right.
It's your job to make them believe, you are the one that's going to make this happen. It's all up to you, Kai. But Atkinson's the one making the simulations and whatnot. But to go to Halsey, Soren, and Aleria, they're just discussing where Kessler's at. And Halsey says she knows, and that sends Soren and Aleria one way and Halsey in another way because she just runs off. But we see her a little bit later. Yeah, I mean, Halsey's so random. But ultimately, she always just has her own thing. Halsey reminds me like on an RPG, the NPC that's with you and you're running one way and that joint just running like a completely other direction. But when it's time to fight, somehow, some way they're there. You know what I mean?
I can't figure out her deal, and it's bothering me that I can't predict what her motive is in this show. And they kind of hint at certain things. I'm like, she just wants to be in power. She wants to control X, Y, Z. But at the same time, it's like I can't really say if she's good, she's bad, or just it's wild. It's weird. I can't. It's really hard to place her in this series. So
yeah, I love the unpredictability because I mean, one whole season we proclaimed her as a bad guy.
Yeah, it's trying to save humanity. But
yeah, and it's still very hard to be overly confident that that's the conclusion on this episode. I think it's very clear in our bracket meters here. If we had to rank from like bad to good, when we say worst, we have to put like Atkinson. No, we have to put like the Arbiter up top. No, the Priest, then the Arbiter, then maybe like, I'm going from highest to lowest. And then maybe like Atkinson, but no, not Atkinson. It would definitely be Peronowski next, then Atkinson, then Makee, and then I think you put Halsey, and then you put Kai. Like it's it's a random flux of like these are all folks technically labeled as bad guys in the episodes right now. And granted, this can all change in any moment because even Makee now seems to be in that fluctuation of like, is she bad or is she just looking for a connection here?
Trying to stay alive in it by any means possible.
Right. And like, right. I mean, and then honestly, you can say like, hold on, what side is Cortana in all of this? We know the loyalties to Chief, but she's playing every side possible. Cortana, every side.
Cortana's messing with this woman bad. Like she's like, I ain't do nothing. Like, but yeah, it's definitely. I was very happy to see Cortana really be a character, like really be involved in this episode. I was like, man, a lot of Halo fans gonna be really happy to finally get this Cortana time. But
the parent, like, I got it big as day in my nose. Like finally, we're going to see the dynamic duo and the utmost capabilities of what the two of them can do together. But we'll get there in 1 second. Anyway, so where we at now? Oh, so Soren gives this notion of we're talking to John about where it all started, and this is Onyx, and Onyx nonetheless is a lot of, and I do know this is a lot of the foundation of the Spartans. Also, earlier wars with the humans and the Covenant. There's a lot that happens in Onyx, but ultimately it is about where the Spartan program really gained its birth in terms of the training and so on. So, this is a little bit of a nostalgia moment for them, but also could be a little bit triggering. But, it makes sense because you're going back there. This ultimately, as we know, that the Spartan program is alive and well, this next generation. So Kessler being a target just makes sense. Just sort of checks out. Also, let's not forget that this guy was not wearing like a Spartan helmet. So like, if you had to kind of like say, if there's a kid we can kidnap here, which better one than one that seems to already be signing up for it? You know what I mean?
I'm very confused about maybe I missed it. I need to recap season 1, but I almost felt like season 1 was like exposing the Spartan program for like what it was, and then I feel like that happened and nothing happened. Like it's just like kind of business is normal. So like we expose Halsey. Oh, she's kidnapping kids. She's brainwashing soldiers. She's saving the world. And now the UNSC is cool with making more Spartans. They're cool with how the sausage is made here. Like do we? Because I'm confused. Are we going back to using the brain chips? Are we not still doing those, or we're trying a different method? We're making new stormtroopers. We're no more clones. Like, is that what we're doing here? Like, I'm very confused as to like with the show's rules established as to like, is this now okay, or are we not doing this? So I don't know. Like, just we take an entire season making Halsey the bad guy just to make the good guys now the bad guys. So I'm confused. But yeah, go ahead. Went on a tangent there.
Hey, well, I guess we'll see what happens. I don't have any answers to that per se. But anyway, Soren says, Kessler's there, and talking to John, remind you of anything, and just for the notion that they're still making Spartans. Meanwhile, Quan Ha is just searching and looking around random, much like Halsey here, until we realized that they both were on the same sort of mission. But Soren says, I can see what you're thinking, but don't. You're banged up. You have no armor, because we know that John is going to try anyway to get to the base, to get to Paranowski, where Soren is going to look for his son with his wife. Quan Ha is being shot at randomly, while Master Chief is out here with the sneak Spider-Man executions here, sneaking behind him, putting in that work. But with all this happening, Quan Ha, in order to take covers, by also being led by the mother, again, who's just been intrusive in her thoughts and visions, makes her jump into a well, only to jump into a well, and at the very bottom is Halsey there. Which
I was so confused. I was like, wait, what?
I mean, it was random, but ultimately it was just because you love to be confused without even just taking the answers that's right there in front of you. But she's mentioned like I used to practically live there, so this is why she knew where to go. This is where she wanted to get down there and to sort of see what's going on, but ultimately to be led to the fact that there has been a little bit of housekeeping going on there. But it makes sense. Look where they're at. The birth of where Spartans are made. Of course, she's going to be home, and of course, this is going to have some remnants of what she's done in the past, and sort of going back to her roots. But she takes her, even in her very lighthearted sarcasm, talks about Quan Ha ruining everything that she's built, because before John met Quan Ha, he wasn't emotionally compromised. So it's, they had that little moment with each other. But I think what's important here is understanding that these two are able to be semi-cordial, but also a little bit of discovery of both. What was your thoughts about their a little running with each other down at the bottom of this well, entering this cave, before we get to the big reveal later? But just what were you just expecting from the two of them? And yeah, we've seen this cave before, so we knew what was in it, but we knew it was gone because of things that had happened. But I mean, I'm kind of jumping a little bit there. But what was just your thoughts? And I guess at that immediate jump, did you know exactly where they were at? And did you have any sort of predictions of what was to come?
No, I definitely, like I said, when Halsey, my confusion came in when Halsey did the split, and I for whatever reason my brain processed that she was gonna lead Soren and his wife to where the kid was, not going her whole fairy tale adventure back into the origins of everything. Kind of seeing Quan Ha go in the crazy old lady mode with the whatever curse that she managed to get on the planet, and because that, for whatever reason, this the soul of this woman is like is following her around, and she's becoming whatever. But yeah, getting into that cave, like I said, so we haven't seen that since season 1, since the flashbacks, since we were looking for artifacts and all other types of stuff in season 1. So I didn't expect that to get reused after that. So I gotta say, my surprise for it, I was not expecting to get that in this episode at all. I wasn't expecting to jump back into season 1, any of the stuff that we already kind of ran through, like the stuff that we kind of got all our answers to in season 1. I think this entire episode, the pairings of people that are together are not our norm. To get Quan Ha and Dr. Halsey is, like you said earlier, like is definitely, like, I guess that's something that we definitely needed. We needed that kind of banter between them, seeing how she was the entire reason for majority of season 1, and why John, when John met her on that transport. But like I said, this episode continues to give us pairings that we didn't have before, a lot of answers to questions that we didn't have the episode before, obviously, that we've been waiting almost 5 episodes into. But man, like you said, the reveal of the surprise that we getting into this cave, somebody we thought was not coming back winds up coming back in this episode for this next scene.
Yeah, I didn't listen. For me, I didn't know where this was going. I ultimately thought this was going to lead to Quan Ha's destiny and Halsey being a witness. Didn't realize they were in the same cave where the artifact was at from season 1. But ultimately didn't think the reveal or anything else was to come. So I just thought at the time it was just going to be the two of them really just kind of being acquainted with one another. And as you mentioned, I think the parents get interesting because we're seeing folks sort of flip sides here.
Right.
But ultimately, because of war, the folks that they wanted off the board happens to still be there. So everyone's sort of in this survival mode with really nothing to work with, which is kind of forcing some of these dynamics to kind of come about. So, it was definitely like okay, wonder what they're going to talk about. But, in due time, they did make sense of the conversations that the two of them were to have.
Did you think the reaction to Master Chief and everybody being there seemed kind of light to you? Like they weren't really moving like it was serious? like, yeah, we had a team out there, but you feel like the biggest threat, you went out of your way to make sure that they would have died for you not to really put that much effort into this. Like, you've had multiple opportunities to kill these people. This if they can sneak in, I'm pretty sure like any Covenant or whatever, they defense already is trash. But
I
yeah,
think it's a little bit of 50-50 because he's going to be labeled as a fallen hero. So you can't put a whole, you can't send out a whole force of troops without folks questioning, like, why are we going after the person we thought was the hero that died for us?
Right.
Remember, the whole mission of them being left behind without anything was sort of an inside job. Kai wasn't aware. No one was aware besides Atkinson and Peronowski. So in order for her to deploy troops to go get him, it has to make sense, or it has to be a limited or very small team of folks who were on the inside who weren't to question here. So as you mentioned later on in the episode, they mentioned the Black Ops team. Of course, they're going to know the secret missions and so on. But it still was very much a tight-knit operation. So, yeah, you can't sound an alarm off as if there's a problem when folks aren't aware of how something possibly could be the problem when it was always labeled as something else. So, anyway, I know it's going to make you all mad, but we have the Arbiter without his armor. So I love how the show is equal opportunist because everybody can be without their armor if need be. But anyway, this is where we get a lot of the dynamics and the issues on their ship. As you've realized that there's a problem with the communication, they're unable to contact the High Charity or the fleet. And meanwhile, Makee is there. She was trying to present the AI or Cortana to them, but we established that the AI means nothing. The human means nothing. And at this point now, she's being spared up until they get to the High Charity, where then they will make a public display and an offering of killing her. But the priest here, the priest is just suspicious about everything. And even Makee even saying that like, he's suspicious because everybody's backstabbing everybody at this point. But Makee is trying to convince to the Arbiter that she knows where the Halo's at, even though the priest is suspicious of her doings because she's a human. And even though that she was able to display the Halo, which wasn't her viewing, it was Cortana saving her by tapping into a memory of her. So they're explaining all of this here. Cortana comes in to make it very clear that, well, do you also think that the Arbiter think that you're lying about your communication with the Keystone and knowing the direction of where the Halo is at? What did you think about just really how far on the totem pole Makee is to everything Covenant?
I mean, as they pretty much labeled her, she's a dog, she's a pet. Like, she has no value. Again, like I said, we still haven't had a lot of the pieces as to like kind of what happened from when we thought she died, and she was like one of the most important people in the show to the Covenant. She was what they said, not the high priest, but what they call it, whatever.
The chosen one, the blessed one. I'm sorry.
Yeah. So I'm like, has that role just stopped? Like you said, like they no longer need her. It's a joke. She's tainted, as they said. But again, like I said, this dynamic between Makee and Cortana, where she's like, look, you need me, and she's been keeping her alive, doing little by little, trying not to, expose too much, so they don't actually see what her value is, as we later know Cortana is the ultimate weapon. But yeah, like we see little by little just the entire power that Makee had from season 1 and how little of it she has now, and how she's barely surviving by just on her word alone, and of course help from Cortana. But yeah, it's just weird to see her at the top, and then of course at the bottom of the totem pole.
Or it was just all perception. I mean, at this point now, I mean, like you use somebody you like somebody as far as you can use them, and when they realized that she was basically not helping them to be able to retrieve the keystones and the artifact, and she has failed numerous times, it's like, all right, cool, moving on to the next one. I mean, they're a savage race, That's why they don't care. They pulled out that energy sword after every 3 words and said, get her out of here. Even to the point of the priest saying, Forget taking her back to the high priest. Like, get this done. Not the high priest, the high charity. Get this done now. We'll figure it out later. Like, I do like the consistency with that. But as you mentioned, she's here to survive. She's gonna weasel her way into survival. And that does cause her to be sort of manipulative and everything. I tell you one thing about Makee, she's gonna put on a performance because she got tears after every single thing she says. And and I don't know if I believe her. Do I believe her with Cortana? Don't know. Do I believe her with the Arbiter? I don't know. Damn sure don't believe anything she'll ever say to the priest because she has to lie her entire ass off in order to survive him. But did before he was taken care of. But there's that. But anyway, back to the squad sims here. Perez now got that fire in her, and she decides she's gonna take lead. So she's doing it her way. And while she's able to complete the mission, she gets out of the simulation because they completed it. She questions Kai, but Kai basically brushes her off to take the win. This was a very, very important part to Kai sort of establishing the simulation programs and sort of just the protection of team. Because at the end of the day, Kai's going to take her orders, but Kai is a soldier and you can complete the mission. But as he mentioned, there didn't look like means for them to escaping. It wasn't quite evident then, but Kai was able to kind of look a little bit ahead of this in terms of, now what? As they mentioned, now what? And I was kind of wondering what Perez was getting at. Because, ultimately she just won and then she just snapped out of the simulation, which was kind of like, right. I get it in a way of like, you think if you complete a mission, that's it. But this was supposed to be like the entire experience because let's not forget, as Kai mentioned, and as we saw, the first part of the simulation, they had to board the ship. They didn't just land in it. They weren't just in it, So it has to be a measure of evacuation. And what does that look like? Because as you mentioned, all this is random, unpredictable. We need to be able to predict for everything at all times. Only to find out that Atkinson's like, when you complete the mission, I don't give a fuck about you after that. Wipe my hands clean, on to the next. But we'll talk about the rest in a second here. So we see John because after he was out in the woods and all of that, he's took enough shots and they eventually got him. He's being brought in the chains. He requested for Permanowski. And this soldier's letting him know that ain't happening, kind of trying to taunt in front of him a little bit. But like, come on now. Y'all thought this man was going to be strapped down by these little stooges? Absolutely not. He thrashes them, looks at the camera, lets them know he's coming. Atkinson immediately shows Kai the footage, very confidently, as if he knew how he was going to handle this and how Kai might respond, which is interesting because maybe they think they have Kai under their thumb and realize that may actually, and only to come to find out later that may not actually be true, because there's no way you tell Kai that Master Chief is alive. And even with the narrative that they're going to run after this and don't think that she's not going to question, or her loyalty may come into question, which is like, we find out that, we already knew, but Kai and Chief have been together since kids, 6 years old, right? So like, that's a lot of history for one little event for her to still not want to know how we got to the point we are. But Atkinson was kind of like, here's the footage. By the way, he's alive. She want to know exactly how. And then that's where we get to the whole idea, a narrative that him and Makee are basically colluding because he's maintained his little covenant connection. They're working together. Kai doesn't believe it immediately. But at the end of the day, Kai does get the entire briefing in terms of them extracting the artifact, as well as where the means of the other artifact is, which the Covenant has one. So to me, you kind of think like, well, why would he say that? But I think that's because he needed to raise the stakes of, if they're working together and if we have one and they have one, we have to stop him. Otherwise, they're going to have both. So I got it instantly when he said that. But for you, I guess, was there any question about where Kai mind was at with all this vast information being brought to her?
Oh yeah. I've been hating on Kai since on the beginning of the season, so I didn't really care where her mindset was. I already painted her as a villain, or the show painted her as a villain for me. Because it's weird to see her blindly, following these orders. It's funny you mentioned that scene where Ackerson is showing her the video, and I'm thinking to myself, like, why would you show her the video if you already set up the narrative that you knew Homeboy was dead? Like, why? I mean, of course, they later explain like he's trying to establish the narrative and paint Chief as a villain by saying, he's working with Makee or whatever, and make her
I mean, he's
again.
there, so at one way or another, she's going to find out. But
Right.
I think, I think to me, it's just how he casually was like, "So by the way,
Right.
I wasn't going to. I feel like I need to show you this right now. He's here and he's alive." I mean, that's already a lot to really unload onto somebody, because I would instantly think, I'm sure you want to have a conversation with him, so why don't you go meet him and figure out what's going on. But in fact, he instead got ahead of it by running a narrative of like, just to let you know he's a bad guy, you need to bring him in. But I mean, it was always going to cause conflict, because whether she has the suit or not, beat him down, whatever it may be, she was still going to have questions. And if you have her as the leader of your Spartan program, and now she's questioning everything in terms of your leadership, that also becomes a liability. Let's just say that she beat Chief to death or brought him in, case closed, he's locked up. She's still going to question, you told me he died. He didn't. How did he get here? Why is he a bad guy? How did he even get to colluding with Makee? That doesn't make sense. That doesn't add up. Why aren't we talking more about that? It's a lot that I think, regardless if there's answers to any of that I said or not, she's going to question. And more questions goes back to the whole problem that they had with Master Chief. They couldn't control him because he had questions. He was out here running his own missions because he had questions. What happened to Cobalt? This ain't adding up. I'm going to go get the answers, So like, it's like you're creating a beast again. And there's literally no one else to follow after Kai after that.
I don't understand, and maybe I missed it, the infighting of it all when you literally have this threat around the corner. What is the point? Like, and I understand the control, they want to paint a narrative. They want to have more people enlist in the army, you know what I mean, of their own free will, by coming Spartans. And so, we get that. We don't want to do the inhumane way of like snatching people's kids and making them so. And we also don't got time to do that either. So we need ready to play adults to get into the Spartan program. So like you said, I get the whole let's do the self-sacrificing hero, or let's make a hero out of somebody. Let's make somebody the martyr for this cause, because they need soldiers to fight this war. But it doesn't make sense to get rid of your best assets. So I don't know. It just kind of threw me off as we get the reveal of more of Ackerson's plan, that it's just stupid. It doesn't make any sense.
I think my conclusion of all of this, and let's definitely get to the rest of the episode because we got some more things to cover, is Atkinson is not as smart as he's been apparent to be. It's really Paranowski really pulling all the strings, which to me lets me think that Atkinson's at some point going to be disposable of the greater plan. Again, don't know the characters, don't know if there's any lore or anything behind this, but I definitely feel like that, Paranowski has a bigger objective that have yet to be revealed, because Atkinson's looking very,
disposable.
Yeah, definitely. But anyway, we get Makee and Cortana because they're having some interesting way of showing help to one another, but Cortana's trying to help Makee because Makee cannot find a halo. She kind of breaks down because she feels like she's falling, as the word she's used. But she mentioned like, touching an artifact, it just isn't working for her anymore. She needs John. And Cortana, who has been trying this plan this entire time, saying, if you allow me into the systems, I can do some communications in terms of finding John and helping this works, because we ultimately need John to touch it as well in order for you to touch yours. in order for it to work for everybody. So this is like a two-level, two-step authentication of getting the keystones to activate here. Meanwhile, John is walking through the base, trying to get to Peronowski. Quan Ha and Halsey, they're still traveling through the cave. As you mentioned, that changes have been made in the cave. A little bit of house cleaning has been happening. But Quan Ha has a little bit of a hunch in terms of where to go because she continues to see the mother, which is navigating her in the sense of feeling and where to go. Now, we finally get the Kai and Chief interaction. And Chief is being completely honest about letting Kai know about everything, about the deaths, about not having the suits, being left to die, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And then Kai comes back with the question about Makee. And then ultimately Chief is like, hey, listen, I'm just here for Peronowski. And then Kai's like, I got orders. And Chief, in a very nice way, is like, listen, you're more than just a Spartan in your orders, you know? But yeah, that wasn't going to resonate with Kai because we got a fight on our hands, folks. And it's interesting to see Chief take this. And actually, it's not really so much interesting. It really shows you just how much Chief knows his soldiers, his troops, because he had to figure out a way to get through to Kai. Now, really quickly, shortly answer yes or no here. Do you think Chief could have beat her with the armor?
Yeah. He was injured, so I'm gonna give him a pass and say no on that one. I also don't know how much the armor enhances versus like their normal strength. Like if it's more just
that's going to forever be every episode. You're going to question the same thing.
I need the power levels, man.
Somebody please give this man a power map, a scaling map, so he can stop asking about the suit and human ability. So I'm just going to say that, yeah, fully healed Chief would have definitely gave her some go. But I think we got to take the suit for what it's worth. But listen, he was taking blows here and he got up to tell about it. But, you know, he did take a very interesting approach in terms of getting to her. And he talked about how long they've been together, asking what is it worth now, clearly realizing it's not enough. And she just beats him down. And he tried to get to her about talking about Vanit, talking about Halsey, you know, talking about the moment that, like, you know, they became Spartans, how they died inside and so on. And I thought that was just all he was going to say. But he ultimately talked about, like, by dying and because you became a Spartan, nothing mattered because all you did was take orders and listen. To the point now you have the ability of free will, which you should exercise. Let's not forget you just took your palate out, but you're back mentally to just taking orders without questioning. So he's penetrating her in a way mentally that he knew was her weakness. I want to say it, but this is Master Chief being a master manipulator here because he did the same thing to Riz. He broke Riz down mentally. You know, it wasn't about the physicality of which she and the limitation of that. He got to her, which pushed her over the limit, which she ultimately needed a vacation because of that. But he knows his troops, long story short, and this definitely was all he needed to break Kai down because she questioned, even in her which could have been her fatal blow, she pulled back and just swatted him over, but he got what he needed to be done. I thought for sure when she Spartan kicked him that she broke something inside of him because it sounded like some bones breaking, a little bit of Mortal Kombat action there. But you know, as I mentioned, he was able to achieve what he needed to achieve, but she walked away and didn't ultimately get it done as requested or ordered, shall I say. Peronowski and Ackerson, now talking about what was all needed to be done in order for them to be where they at. As you mentioned, John was hard to control, so it needed to be done. Ackerson, you're in charge of this program now, and Reach was going to go down regardless. But then we get as the Admiral gets back to what did they call it? Like the mission control or just the bay, whatever. That there's an encrypted transmission coming through. Communications are compromised. She tells everybody gets out and wants the room. John's on the ground, beat down bad, and Cortana is reaching out. So when Admiral cleared the room, she already knew what it was. Not even a question. She knew it was Cortana. Cortana is also at the same time communicating with John. I think, as you mentioned, we haven't got to see Cortana really get the flex, but this is it because she's in 3 places at one time. I mean, it's AI, so of course, but nonetheless, the way how Cortana is able to be there with Makee in order to help her navigate with the Arbiter in order to save her life, kind of coaching her in a way, and also mentally keeping her stable, but also running the plan in terms of what she's going to do with John. So she's there, she's with John. She's like, "Welcome back, baby. Time for us to get to work," and let John know that she's there and helping John get to where he needs to get. Because she says you need to touch the keystone because the Covenant is going to get to the Halo and you need to get there first. I think she's completely honest with John. When it comes down to Paranowski, she had to complete her mission. She lets her know that she did. She's giving her the Covenant's location in order for them to be able to attack. Ultimately said that she ran the simulation. The numbers ain't looking good. But Paranowski's, I mean, she hinted as if the numbers wasn't looking good. The success rate wasn't going good. But we see Paranowski once again kind of like, oh well. Because she didn't take warning to that at all. This truly tells me a lot. And I want to know what you think. This lets me know that while Atkinson seemed to have been the one that was like the down with reach, it was ultimately Paranowski that was pulling the strings like down with reach. By any means necessary, I don't care. Because now it's like, we're going to try to sneak attack the Covenant, and even if we don't have a high success rate, still do it. She also is the reason why Halsey was left. She also was the reason why Cortana was left. I think you questioned, why was Cortana left? Is she so valuable? Because it was a plant. They needed her to be left so that she could be kidnapped and put into play. So that's the mission. It also makes me think, was Halsey left because there was also a plant in order for it to be some mission that Paranowski may be trying to do later on? Could Paranowski somehow, some way be looking for Miranda and we don't know? Could this be something? It's really interesting to see just how far of a reach, pun intended, I guess, that she has with other characters in order to achieve her goal. But I think it's very clear that she ran a mission with Cortana. Cortana filled her mission, very much narrow information. When it came down to John, she laid down everything about where they at, how close they are. She's with Makee. She's also with the Arbiter. She's letting them know, like, this is what's coming. It's getting bad. Makee is just getting the fact that she was able to get into the system, and she's going to lead John to the Halo ring. This helps Makee because she's able to figure out where the Halo's at, but that means it also helps John to know where the Halo's at. So I think at the end of the day, if you really had to look at this, it's really only about the relationship and the companionship between Cortana and Master Chief. Everybody else is serving some purpose that's somehow, some way going to come back to the benefit of his. Do you agree with my assessment here, or is it things you question or see different?
That was pretty thorough. I do want to jump back to what you were saying about her trying to find Miranda. I don't know if Miranda being off the grid is the issue because Miranda shared Halsey's research with them, so they must know
better. But better. And remember, she disappeared, and everybody didn't know. It was a secret mission. And while her father was aware per se, not everybody else knew.
Right. Yeah, because he was about to mention that, like, before his untimely death, about what was going on with Miranda. So yeah, I guess you got me there. But no, yeah, I thought you pretty much broke that down pretty easily. We got a whole double agent mission with Cortana. We got Paranowski being the evil good. I don't know, like, this chaotic good thing she has going on where, like, I'm willing to do anything to save either the people that's here or just humanity as a whole. Like you said, Reach was expendable. It's just one planet out of how many that we probably haven't seen that the UNSC is compromised of. So we get to see, like, kind of what the bigger picture is. We get to see, like you said, her being Ackerson feeling like basically being Ackerson's boss, pretty much flexing her muscle, letting us know like he's not the one in control. Because before it made it seem like you said, that was never his plan. It was hers the entire time. He's just the puppet, the figurehead to do it. Like you said, because you start to see more of they start to make you feel more about Ackerson, like, oh man, maybe he's not really a bad guy. Like seems like he's actually trying to save the world, but he's kind of forced into this. He really didn't want to do it. Which the whole thing with his dad, I guess they were just still trying to figure out kind of like that cloning process to see if they're going to be able to get that right. I think that was more so of a test than us trying to get a view of like how human of a character he was. Now I do want to ask you something. The fight with Chief and Kai, do you feel like that trope is like used way too often in television and movies? The beat them down till they remember, or that person takes a beating until they figure it out. Or
honestly, it should be happening more, man, because I think a lot of people just fight out of aggression, and once you get it off your chest, you should be able to be a little bit more clear-minded about what you're trying to achieve. I mean, we definitely seen it so many times, that it could go as far as saying it's overused, but I agree with it wholeheartedly. Even in real life, I feel like if you got a problem with somebody, sometimes you just gotta throw their hands a little bit, dap afterwards, and just move on with it. And I think this was her, following orders, but also maybe a level of frustration as well too, because at the end of the day, she did lose Vanet. Riz is gone. And she wasn't able to do anything there. So if there's one person she could take it out on, you can almost go as far as saying her brother and Master Chief. And they knew that it wasn't going to be no bad blood after. There's definitely no beef after this.
No,
definitely. And we saw her run after him later. But yeah, let me get through the last few things really quick, and then we'll wrap it up. With as I mentioned, Cortana being there with her. We talked about that with Master Chief. She talked about fulfilling her mission parameters. Talk about the UNSC being able to attack the Covenant fleet, the success rate there, what she should do now. And Peronowski said, remain where you are, and want to know what she be remembered. Hell, even Cortana's dispendable at this point. Everybody. So, but I mean that's interesting because if she is there something bigger or better or greater that they're working on that they feel they don't need her at the time? Was she just a pawn to something bigger? And again, there's probably something in the lore that you all know about, but I'm just strictly talking about the show, and we'll see how it goes. But I mean, y'all, by all means, feel free to get in the comments, let us know your thoughts. But as I mentioned, Cortana's playing all sides. We had Halsey and Quan Hagen, and then, well, they get into this chamber, and Miranda is there because they're in this secret base, which we find out that, all of Halsey's research is here, and Miranda is finishing up. And as she said, without your research, I would never been able to discover your mistakes. That right there is really interesting because we know what mistakes is. Which she's definitely identifying as mistakes, at least some. But will she go into detail on what could this mean? I don't even want to spend the time talking about it. We'll let everybody in the comments. You let us know your thoughts and predictions in terms of what does this mean for Miranda going forward, and what does this mean for this relationship between mother-daughter here. And Miranda definitely doesn't look overly happy to see her. And we'll see what that sort of conflict brews up for future things. But then with that, we get Soren and Liera at Theranopoli. And as you mentioned, they're here, they're coming because they're looking for Kessler, but not just yet. So we see Kai now with the spike. So she's running the simulation. She 1v10'd it or whatever it might have been. But she did it herself, only for Atkinson to show up. And he shows up in the AI space basically saying, I sent you down there with John. I shouldn't have sent you down there with John. I seen what happened. And And then that's when she start asking about, the evac without a hitch. And, did you manipulate the simulation? Did you let them win? Questioning about what he gave to everyone at Reach. And then, even talking about the wanting to start the simulation at FleetCom. Kai's asking all the questions, one way or another. But then, Atkinson says, like, what happened there was tragic and inevitable. And then she comes out of the simulation because she realizes that this man is a bunch of BS, and she runs after John. But he says, "You're too late. Sent the black ops to finish what you couldn't." Meanwhile, Cortana is coming through like Moses because he is splitting the water and freeing his people because he has a walking AI path through this entire base. And I mean, this is what we want. Again, the relationship between the two of them, seeing Cortana and Chief duo, what they can accomplish, just a little taste of what they could come. And I love how John was basically like, how did he say it? In sense of like, oh, I didn't know you could do all this. And then he was like, she basically was like, this is a little bit, but then he was kind of like, well, I know. But anyway, it's going to just be good to have that banter back with one another. And just seeing the utmost capability between the two. But yeah, Cortana was out here flexing for sure, leading him all the way to the Keystone. And with that, we go back to the Covenant ship because they are aware that there was a transmission leaving that ship, and they are not happy. And they're looking at Makee, but they ultimately know that it came from this a human device. And this man, the Arbiter, has a speech, and I have no clue where this is going, but I knew he wasn't going to kill Makee right here. I just knew it. But the fact that he turned around and he basically kills the priest and anybody that was opposing him is just kind of wild. We're going to have to see how that plays out. But Makee was spared, although she had a tear out of her eye again. She crawls over to the Keystone, and at this point now, the Keystone's lighting up because they're both at it. They touch it, and that's the end of the episode here. So much was covered in this episode. A lot of different things. I can't wait for that one guy to get in the comments and say that we forgot something. Basically said we missed everything. We need to watch it again. I can't wait for that guy to get. I might have to ban him. He just hates way too much now. But with that, on that note, though, is there anything else to comment, to cover before we wrap up?
No, I like I said, just wrapping like this is establishing the new pairings, the new relationships of people were, for the last couple episodes that we're gonna get. So, like I said, seeing John and Cortana actually work together and what they're capable of, what we know they're capable of together, is going to be awesome. Seeing Soren and his wife, work more together, even though they become more of like the B players at this point, looking for their son. Seeing Kwon Ha and deal with Halsey, see how that goes, and now Miranda. So we get a completely new dynamic with that now. Like I said, just setting up all these different relationships into the next episodes, and see like a lot of how, like you said, all those like B characters, side characters that now have pivotal roles in this and in the show going forward. I mean, it took 5-6 episodes, like we had a whole war and everything going on, but we're definitely getting more of the bigger picture of like what's going on and a lot of the politics at hand, and why it's just stupid. But overall, like you said, this really is a really strong episode. It was a lot to cover. There's a lot going on, but it didn't feel like it was a lot going on, but it didn't feel like too much, if that makes sense. Like it felt like I honestly don't even know how they were able to direct all of this in one episode, and while keeping us focused on what was going on. But like I said, overall, it was really, really, really good episode.
Yeah, agreed. All I'm gonna say is, there definitely was a lot in this episode. Hopefully, we were able to cover it all to the best of our ability here. But definitely looking forward to next week episode 7. Then one after that, we got one more to go. So we're going to see how they decide they're going to close this season out, and what type of cliffhangers they're going to leave us on before we have to prepare for another season. But yeah, this episode was great. Can't wait to see what's up with Miranda. Can't wait to see Quan Ha and her legacy going forward. And then John, I need to see him suited back up, man. I can't even fake. I'm cool with him not being suited. I'm not really stuck on that, but I can't wait to see what happens when he is with Cortana suited up. And then ultimately, can Cortana move her can she move locations? Like, while she has sent the transmission, can she physically be moved? Is she stuck with being on the Covenant ship as like her central location? Is that how the device works? But ultimately, they got to get to the Halo, and that will be the means of her being uploaded into Master Chief suit, and then it's just a wrap after that. It's just a wrap. Can't wait to see OP Chief come through.
I need it.
And hey, listen, we got a mega fight on our hand. Arbiter versus Master Chief will be in the finale. I can absolutely ensure that that's going to be a thing. And she's going to be willing to get her revenge, since she's just being treated as nobody. I mean, Cortana got to be ready to have blood on her hand. The way how the Arbiter's treating her, the way how Paranowski is basically like, "Yep, thank you for your services. Here you go." She's gonna take that. She's gonna take all that very personal, and I'd love to see her get her revenge on it. But let's wrap it up there, folks. We'll see y'all back next week for episode 7 of Halo. Thank y'all for watching.
See.